Thank you for listening to Hustle and Heart. I'm your host, Edie Weintraub. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Phoebe Hunt, artist, singer, songwriter, and soon to be mom. Phoebe, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, tell us a little bit about your journey. What would you like our listeners to know about you?
Oh goodness, music is such a lifelong journey. I don't think it ever ends really. But yeah, I started playing when I was 6 years old, and my father played, so it was a musical household, and I'm really lucky about that. But I just stuck with it.
So was guitar, vocals, what was your first foray into performance?
Violin. Yeah, I was
Oh.
6 years old, and I was lucky enough to get private lessons at the Austin Montessori School. My mom was a teacher there, and she signed me up for violin lessons, and there was a teacher there named Marcia who tapped me on the shoulder when I was like 6 and was like, "It's time to get sized for your violin." And I was like, "Does my mom know?" And she was like, "Yep, she signed you up." So I was like, "Okay, let's go." And it was amazing. Ever since then, I really fell to it quickly.
And how has starting with violin evolved into perhaps exploring other instruments and beyond?
Yeah, well, my dad played guitar at home, so I was very used to just having guitar playing at home, and like he played classical guitar and all sorts of guitar, jazz guitar and thumb style, like Travis style finger picking, and so I grew up with him playing guitar all around me all the time, and my brother played piano, and so I just kind of, was really familiar with a lot of different instruments just from my whole childhood and life growing up. And I always wanted to play a little guitar, and my dad would give me lessons. I took to the violin. The violin's a melody instrument. It's very melodic, and so you learn melody, and guitar is a chordal instrument. You can learn melody on guitar, but of course learning melody on guitar is trickier, and learning chords on violin is trickier. So the piano integrates both, right? The right hand is melody and the left hand is chordal. But yeah, my brain really gravitated towards the melodic and the violin for that, and which is kind of like the human voice and singing. And so I feel like I did turn to singing next, which was really in my early 20s, or kind of dabbled it in high school with some choir and doing some musicals and just singing. I always loved singing, but I never did like solo singing. And then I was in a band in college where I started singing harmonies, the third part, because they were already a duo. So I kind of sang that third part, which the third part kind of migrates. It's a harder part to hear, but since I had so much experience, I was able to kind of find that third part. And we did like 4 years where we played every Thursday at the Waterloo Ice House in Austin, and every Wednesday night we would have rehearsal. So we would do mostly vocal harmony rehearsal pretty much every Wednesday night for about 4 years. And that really trained my ear on like vocal harmony and finding the third part and understanding the difference in the integrations. We really worked on that a lot, and so I felt really lucky to have kind of this 4-year masterclass in vocal harmony. And then that kind of also trained my ear in kind of getting into guitar and understanding basics. And then when I started learning the basics of guitar, I was like, oh, I can do this, like just strumming some chords. Of course, if you want to become a greater guitar player, there's so much you can study, like chord theory, like all kinds of things, melodic structure, bluegrass, flat picking. And so I've dabbled in that just a little, and I still feel like a beginner intermediate guitar player and a pretty advanced violinist.
No, it's so beautiful. My son early on was exposed to a cellist, and this cellist was unlike other cellists, right? It wasn't classical music. He would record something, then he'd put it in loop, and then he would do something fun with it. And so then of course we took him to see two cellos perform, and to see, rock songs performed on cellos. It brought it, I think, closer to home rather than the traditional way that they teach kids, which is classical. And if you infuse some local music or modern music that the kids are hearing, I think it helps kind of seal it in and make it a little bit more tangible, because classical sometimes feels so foreign, I think, to our children today.
Totally. Classical can feel foreign. And I was a Suzuki violinist, so Suzuki is like you might know about that methodology. It's, really grown widely popular as a way to start learning. And it kind of blends the audio learning with the visual learning, because you learn by ear and you learn off the paper. But it's interesting because that really resonates with folk music, because in the folk idiom, you learn by ear. So even though it's classical music in the Suzuki methodology, it has that part of the folk tradition where you're learning to play by ear. And so when I kind of crossed over to the fiddle world, now I've been playing fiddle as long as I had been playing classical violin. So I did about 18 years on classical, and about in my early 20s, I switched over to kind of folk and bluegrass through jazz. Jazz was my kind of intermediary, but it wasn't like I did a huge jazz studies. I did take a few jazz studies classes at UT as like an elective, and I did some jazz classes at some summer camps that I had been to, and I kind of started understanding the chord theory of it, and like how how to start improvising over melodies and things like that. But it was when I went to the Mark O'Connor fiddle camp in San Diego that I really took it, like I really started understanding what fiddle was, because I had always kind of thought fiddle was kind of like just like a simpler thing, or from the people, from the folk. I didn't know what it was. Like people in the classical world don't really know what fiddle is, and teachers don't really know, and they learn, there's books that kind of have fiddle tunes in them, but they're really elementary the way they break them down, just to play like the basic melody of them. But when you start playing bluegrass with bluegrassers, or old time Appalachian, or swing or gypsy jazz, those melodies are just a total jumping off place. Like that's just the stripped down, front facing kind of classical way of trying to teach you fiddle. But fiddle is all nuance, all about like the bow technique and like the different nuances of the fingers and little what do they call them, ornamentations that kind of make each style unique. And they're all very much improvised, so you play the main melody, but then you learn how to like improvise around the melody, and they're a lot more complex than what those like I learned to play fiddle books teach. Like those don't teach them at all. You have to learn them by ear, and you have to learn them on campgrounds with other, like with kind of, it's a lineage thing. You pass it down from one fiddler player to the next, and it kind of, there's really no way of shortcutting that. I think the internet has made it more possible, because you can like pull up great players and you could learn that way. But the books that they were written for fiddle players are really just like the surface level thing. And so as a violin player wanting to cross over to fiddle, I never knew it was even I never really knew what it was. And I had learned some songs in the books and thought, oh, this is silly. These are silly stuff compared to the hard classical Bruch and Brahms that I was learning. But then I went to the fiddle camp and was like, whoa, my mind is blown. It felt like I had just entered like Harry Potter's Hogwarts land. Yes. And I got like Brittany Haas and Alex Hargraves and Casey Dreesen and the Tashina and Tristan Claridge and Tatiana Hargraves was like 9 years old, and she was already amazing. And I was like, oh, this is a whole different thing, and I want to play with these people. I was like, these are my people. I found my people. And I felt so beginner. I was like, oh my gosh.
That'd be very humbling, right? To, have studied, but then realize you really don't know anything, and to take, lessons from them. I don't think San Diego and fiddle though. That just happens to be someone, the instructor moved there?
I don't even know. They did it at this beautiful campus in San Diego, and they also had a Nashville version. The Mark O'Connor Fiddle Camp had two weeks of summer. One was in Nashville and one was in San Diego, and I was just invited by a friend to the San Diego one. I was like, sure, I'll go. And I was like, whoa, yeah, very humbling. I learned quickly. I can learn quickly by ear, but to catch the nuance, and then all night people were just improvising and playing in all these different circles, and it was very much broken by genre, even in the fiddle world. So there was the bluegrass circle and the old time circle and the Irish circle, and like the Texas Swing Circle was where I was able to finally find a place, because I was like, how do I jam? I was like, I want to jam. All I wanted to do was jam, and I'm just like this fiddle player, like walking to one circle to the next one, like, I don't think I can jam in this circle, going to the next one, not quite right for me. I don't know any of these songs. And then I just kept, and then I got the Texas Swing one was held by Johnny Gimbel, who is like legendary Texas swing. You know, he was kind of the guy who crossed over between Texas swing and pop country, you know, recording on George Strait albums. But he kind of added that magic, which was, he added like color tones, like the nines and the flat twos and the things like that, and the augmenteds and he did that to country music with his fiddle. But anyway, he was now older, and his granddaughter was sitting there too, and she was like my age, Emily Gimbel. And she ended up becoming my roommate in Austin, and she's a great piano player and singer and really holding the torch for that tradition. But that's when that Texas swing was like my in to fiddle. And then there was Johnny Gimbel had a camp in Taos, New Mexico, so then I went to that camp, and then, you know, I just kind of did the full immersion thing, and there was a band I was playing with in Texas called the Belleville Outfit, or I was in a band called the Hudsons, but they didn't want anything to do with Texas swing, because they were all like, we're original songwriters, we don't want to do covers. And I was like, that's fine. And I like hopped into this Belleville Outfit band, which was like really all about gypsy jazz and swing, and they let me sing. And that band is where I kind of launched into the fiddle world, because we were like on the cusp of being bluegrass enough to play at festivals. We were like gypsy jazz, original songwritery, but like had improvisation going on in the band, and like that being in that band allowed me to access the backstage jams. And being in the backstage jams is where I learned to play the fiddle.
So on the bottom of your, login says Seeds of Music. So it seems like everything that you've been doing here, right? Planting seeds, investing in yourself, learning new things. So expand on how Seeds of Music came to be.
Sure, yeah. So Seeds of Music is my education platform now. But yeah, obviously my own seeds of music were kind of like planting, and everywhere I went, I did feel like Johnny Appleseed also, just like going around. And I always taught at kids camps, and like being in the Belleville Outfit gave me a platform where then I was like hired to teach at festivals, and like started kind of passing on and do workshops and stuff. And I always loved the education part of it, and thought it was just really cool. Like I was like, as I travel, I can do like lessons. So I always felt I was kind of planting seeds of music. Like, I'm Johnny Appleseed, just, and lots of musicians are like that. We all kind of travel around, and we're all just like, pew, pew, pew. But I wanted to formalize it, and I did it during the pandemic. I had done a TED Talks called Seeds of Music. That was a TEDx in Palo Alto, California. And I called that Seeds of Music. So that was really where I started it, but I had never formalized any business or anything like that around that name. I just was talking about the greater philosophy of how important it is to plant seeds of music in society, and like kind of showcase some of the young children that I've been lucky enough to work with over the years, and kind of talked about how music is a gateway to being able to have like more creative children, and like as people are more creative, they're able to actually have more innovative ideas, and how more innovative ideas is what is the key to like changing culture and society in the long run. And it also helps people with collaboration, because music is like a really great way to learn how to collaborate, and to have to like integrate what you learn, and to learn from the past but make it your own, and all these things. And I had these children talking about that on this Seeds of Music TED Talks, and so I kind of knew that I was going to lean that way. But then when the pandemic hit, the idea totally changed. My original idea for it was to make a platform where touring artists could book gigs at schools along their tour routes. So I was working on an app for that before pandemic, and then pandemic hit, and I was like, well, can't really work on that right now because we can't go into schools, we can't travel, like no one's traveling. And so it pivoted to really wanting to just serve the need of that time, which was like, I have all these musician friends who are all out of work, and there's all these festivarians, like people who normally would go to music festivals, who would love to play music right now. And I thought during the lockdowns, like, we're all going crazy and it would be best if we just spent our time practicing music. So I like took all these online courses to learn how to build a platform to be able to kind of connect those two people, like Festivarians who maybe could be pointing their mind to practice with artists who are out of jobs who might be willing to be teachers. And we had like 300 or 400 students run through that, and we taught lessons in fiddle, bluegrass, fiddle, mandolin, guitar, dobro, ukulele, songwriting, banjo, singing, bass. And we had all, and like was able to give jobs to 30 or 40 musicians, and but that ran its course as the pandemic ended. And I realized I wanted one course that I thought could make a big difference, that could be like, I was thinking the world's going to open up again. I don't want to be sitting here doing running a different courses every single week. People don't want to be taking music. Like, there's already some great platforms for taking music on the internet. I don't want to like be competing with them. I was just trying to fill that particular need at that time. So I pivoted Plant Seeds of Music to really what the name is, planting seeds of music in young children. And I built a course that's really my cornerstone course, which is called Ukulele Sprouts Parent Teacher Training Program. And it's about planting seeds of music in young children through their parents. Because sorry to take so much talking, but I started.
Oh, I love this. It's beautiful. I'm excited to share the story.
Yeah, it's like pivot. And I think I've landed because I started also doing some ukulele classes during that whole pandemic, where I was on a Zoom call with like 14 6-year-olds. And I was like, something is wrong with this picture here. Like, I was teaching them like first finger really round, some really simple things. And I was like, I wrote the curriculum, and I was able to get their attention and hold their attention for 45 minutes on a Zoom call.
6-year-olds, that's amazing.
4 to 6, it was like even like 4-year-olds. I was like, but I was like, so then it channeled, my mom was a Montessori school teacher for 25 years, and my dad's a classical guitar player, and I grew up with all this Suzuki and everything. And I was like, what if I built an online course that could teach parents how to teach their own children how to play ukulele in their homes, so that they get that one-on-one bonding? Because I realized I'm getting these bonding moments with these 4-year-olds and 6-year-olds, and I'm seeing them have these aha moments. I'm like, this is not rocket science what we're doing here. Like, it's very simple, but I'm just holding space for them in a particular way. And so I kind of drafted off, like, what am I doing to be able to hold their attention, to be able to get these bonding moments? And I siphoned it off into a philosophy, the Sprouts philosophy. Spend quality time preparing a creative home environment, rich in ritual, routine, rhythm, and rhyme, with ongoing love and support, utilizing the tool of music to create something wonderful to do away from the screen.
That's so beautiful. I'm going to have to write that acronym down. It's so perfect for the seeds that you're planting.
And then we sprout them, sprouts. So the parents that take my course, when they graduate, then they can become the local ukulele teacher in their community.
Well, and I appreciate that you've positioned it on ukulele, because I find that one of the hardest things to learn to do is, either get a piece of equipment, right? And guitars are big. And of course, my youngest gravitated towards drums. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if we have to travel with all of these drums. But, I was just blown away at just the gravity into kids and music, right? I just don't feel like we foster it enough in school, because the more that we've, distilled down school, we've stripped away art and physical education and music and all the things that cultivate such joy and help those neurons in your brain fire so much more seamlessly. So I like to see that be cultivated again. So bravo, you're doing great work.
Thank you. It's been a labor of love, but ukulelesprouts.com has that philosophy listed on it. And there's a free course that I have that is at plantseedsofmusic.com. Plant Seeds of Music, and that is like for any parents interested in just like what is this girl all about? But also like it answers the main questions that most parents have about starting their child, like what's the best age to start my child in, and like what's the best instrument. And of course I think ukulele, because it's like travelable, but also it's really good for their young hands and the fingers, and it translates over to other instruments. Piano is also wonderful. It doesn't travel as well, but the keys can be quite a little bit heavy for little fingers to push at the very young age. So like I'm talking we start as early as 3 years old, 3 to 7, 8. And then it's a great launching pad, because once you get some basic dexterity situations under your fingers, some basic focus, our main goal really, beyond anything else, is lengthening the attention span of children. So the curriculum is really based around that's why I said I was holding their attention for 45 minutes. And it's only because of repetition. The songs have these questions, like the teacher asks questions the whole time, which allows the children to participate in like songwriting. And then each song can be played for a lot longer. And it's really about practicing one learning technique in each song. So as you practice one learning technique over and over and over, it really anchors that learning in. But it's really about how long can we get them to do this for? And like we've noticed that children who've been doing it, like as they lengthen their attention span, and that attention span lengthens in other idioms, like they're able to read for longer, they're able to kind of sit and focus and write for longer. And in this world where attention span is being fought for by screens, by teaching distraction techniques and like all these advertisings that just like move our attention here to here, and this ADHD epidemic of people not being able to focus on anything because they're just like, they grew up in this world where they're just, their mind is racing all the time. So this is about slowing down and focusing and learning how to focus at a very young age. And we're seeing that translates into all these other places in their life. And so that to me is really the main focus of all of this. And it's just through this fun little thing called ukulele, like
Love that.
it's easy to play, it's easier on their fingers. They sometimes complain that it hurts. Oh, it hurts my fingers. And so we have a response to that as teachers. We say, well, that means you're doing it right. Like, let's see how long it takes until it doesn't hurt anymore. You're building calluses, like you're growing strength, like, because some parents, natural default is, oh my gosh, it's hurting them. Stop. Like, and
that's a good thing, right? You want them to overcome that challenge, that fear, that concern, because then it shows their tenacity to keep going.
Exactly. And so we're just kind of reshifting some brainwaves in parents to understand some of these things about how do we get through some of the hurdles that are like the most common excuses children bring up to stop doing something. And it's like, well, we don't have to push them too far, but we can like challenge them to grow. Yeah. So anyway.
Well, that's why I think that if you kind of look at the evolution, I feel like my parents let me or encouraged me to fail, and that's where the growth came from. So it's good to help, at least in the conversations to parents, we're going to experience X, Y, and Z, encourage them to persevere, because then it just makes them that much stronger.
Exactly. And it's so sweet to be working with parents at this deep level and to see their households transform and turn into musical households. And it's really cool because parents that do our program aren't parents that are like professional musicians. They're everyday people who, lots of them wished they started playing music when they were younger, but didn't. So they are also getting to learn the basics of ukulele themselves. And they're like realizing it's not rocket science, because there's this gap in society between like, people think they need like a great professional. That's why I get the job teaching kids. They think they need someone who's played for 33 years to teach their children. And yes, eventually that'll be true, like as their child develops and is at a higher learning. But for those beginner years, planting the seeds of music, like there's a lot that just any parent could do. And then by learning that, then like as you move on past my curriculum, because I've decided to end it. Like it's the very beginning stages, and then I'm like, and now go find a local teacher. Like after you've graduated this, you get about 2 years of planting seeds. And then when you get to a real teacher, they're getting to start at a much more advanced level, and they're getting to like, you know, they can change into a new instrument, but they have their dexterity, they have their focus, they have the ability to stay for a long time. They have the ability to like have independent finger movement and hand-eye coordination, and all these foundational things that most big teachers with at a beginner have to like start from the beginning again. And so we're noticing our students are like learning much more quickly once they start private lessons, like after graduating our program, which is cool. So it's like a leapfrog situation, and it's just like, well, when you do all that work at home, it translates into the society and how everything resonates. It's cool to see. It's cool to see.
Well, and also like beautiful for you to see that evolution. So have you seen now some of your early students grow, and have they shared with you any follow-up videos or feedback in regards to where they are today?
Absolutely. And like some of the very beginning ones that started are now, they were like 5 when they started, and now they're like 8 and starting other instruments. And so like one of ours is now playing violin, which I love, but I'm not creating an online course for violin, even though that's my main instrument, just because I think it's a lot trickier to teach violin to beginner violinists on the internet with like how to hold it and everything. But they're moving so quickly in their violin studies, and like it's so cool. I'm like, and now I've gotten to see her live. I've gotten to meet her in person, and we've had some violin lessons in person and stuff. And she's like a sponge. She learns so quickly. I'm like, yes. And it's because her mom has been so awesome with her. Really, it's her mom. I mean, her mom has held such incredible space for her to grow. And all her siblings, they have 5 siblings. The oldest plays guitar, then mandolin, then now she's on violin, and the 2 youngest are still in the ukulele sprouts program. So it's been cool to see their whole family is such a musical family. So it's cool.
I think we should talk to some kind of local university and see about that study in regards to how the seeds of music had helped, you know, their foundation, their root system, and how, you know, successful they end up becoming because of it.
I think so too. That'd be so cool. Maybe there could be a really cool study on this, like a 10-year study.
Yes.
I think it'd be cool to see. That's what I'm always like. I'm like, I can't wait to see what happens in 10 years. That's, you know, that's like a tree. It takes time to really develop, but I'm excited to see where this is in 10 years.
I've done something similar with my kids. So my husband and I are not super religious, but we said we want music to be a foundation of their upbringing. And so we started the kids very young. And my oldest started with cello, but that's obviously a big instrument for little kids. And he evolved into doing bass guitar. My youngest saw his big brother doing music, and he said, okay, well, what can I do? Right? I can't do guitar. I'm not sure about the keys. So he picked up drums. So he's been playing drums now he's about to be 12, I think, since about 5 years old. And then his oldest brother has been playing bass guitar for 4 years. And so what's been interesting for me to observe of all that is that, you know, it's one thing to practice and practice and practice. It's another thing to perform and get up on stage and have that audience, because I think that's really where that true love and energy comes from, is seeing, you know, that the audience appreciate and give that love to you, because here you are doling it out to them.
Absolutely. And forgive me, I had to let my dog inside.
Okay, of course, no
Like,
problem.
I'm ready to come in. I'm like, okay.
I think that's been something I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on. You know, the kids are practicing, they're getting lessons, etc. It's really moving forward to those performances to let them see what that result is like. It's like doing sports, right? You practice, you know, you're with your team, you're doing stuff by yourself, but when you get to the game or the match or the tournament, then you truly see the fruits of your labor. So what have you seen in terms of success in encouraging kids and fostering places where they're allowed to perform?
Oh, I love this. And I love that you noticed that with your own children. Performances give motivation, right? It's like something to work towards, but they don't have to be like some big thing either. I've kind of equated it to ice cream sometimes.
Okay.
Like, it's nice to have something you're like, oh, if you do this, you get ice cream. And we try to kind of avoid that style of motivation. So instead, it's like, if we practice, we can go perform for our neighbors. And so we've started with really micro performances in our community. Like, for example, just 2 days ago, I was at my cousin's house, and her son is playing ukulele. And, of course, I don't know how it happens. It's like a magic gravitation. They know I play violin. I don't even know if the kids know I play the ukulele. It was like, I walked into their house, the daughter's like, do you have your violin with you? Okay. I get it out. The son comes up with his ukulele, and we're playing for 30 minutes, and we're having a jam session. And of course, we're like, okay, we're going to prepare something to get to perform for your parents. And just for 30 minutes, we were working towards that. And then, of course, the focus was there. And we had a 30-minute uninterrupted session. And they were just like, light bulb, light bulb, light bulb, light bulb. And then we went and had a little mini performance in the backyard for mom and dad. And my sister was there. And it's like, that is where we start with performance, Or we sometimes say, well, we can perform for our stuffed animals. So like we start with it's like, we're not trying to go out and be rock stars. And actually one of my big philosophies is that music is a language that we can all do in our homes and in our local communities, and the goal of music is not to become famous, which I think is a misconnection in our society, that people are like, oh, you've made it if you're famous playing music, and you're like, music is so much deeper than the goal of fame. But performance does really motivate you to practice. So like, how do we blend those things without confusing them, right? And so that's one of the ways, is like we do want to practice. We do want to share our gifts, because once we've cultivated this thing, we want to create a space to share. But we can do it as simply as like inviting the neighbors over and playing. Or if children come over to the house, especially with this young age, right? If their friends come over, and like, oh, if we practice, then we can have your friend over on Friday after school, and we can have a little mini concert. Maybe you can even teach your friend how to play a little something. And so we start with these very micro steps in concert, and we do like a lot of the setting up of the stuffed animals.
And you need an audience, right? It's perfect.
We do. And yes. We do motivation based on like, we have this practice calendar sticker, and you put like stickers in, and you're like, okay, if we can get 4 stickers this week, then we'll have a concert on Saturday, or have friends over on Saturday and play, the songs we worked on, or things like that, so that it's like, there's a little motivation in it being consistent. Like if we practice every day, or if we can get 4 stickers, okay, well, we've only got 3 stickers, so let's get our ukulele out, get that 4th sticker, and be able to then have a little gathering on Saturday and just play for our neighbors. So that's where we start with the concerts, but then they've evolved to, we've had summer camps, where some of the teachers who are now graduates are starting their own studios and hold summer camp. And now, look, we just had one camp run for 2 weeks in Arizona, and they had like 9 kids at one and 13 at another, so they're planting seeds of music. It's amazing. And they have a little concert on the Friday, so that feels a lot bigger. That's like the next step. And those kids become a little bit older. Our curriculum can go all the way to like 8, 9-year-olds. If they're very beginner, if they had never played before and they're 8, they can start with our curriculum. I feel like once they're like 12, 13, our curriculum's going to kind of feel a little babyish to them. But if that 9, 10-year-olds we're seeing gravitate towards the curriculum, although I intended it for, like, in my mind, the idealist 3, 5, 6 years old. But of course, in our society, people haven't started playing music yet, and they're 10 years old, and they need a place to start. So it's a great place to start. But anyway, we have a little concert at the end of the summer camp, and that's a really cool thing, because 1 week of full immersion like that, where you're at camp every day for 3 hours a day, focusing on ukulele mostly, we get to a place where we can do about almost an hour and a half to 2 hours of that is actually spent on music. And by the end of that session, they've really learned, you can get a leapfrog in a week of that kind of full immersion. And they have a lot of songs, especially when they're some of the older ones, they learn really quickly, because that's just how the curriculum is set up. And it's cool. They can do like a 30-minute concert, and there's like all these kids, they play together, and as they as they move through the curriculum and maybe they don't know the songs, they sit down, and the ones that remain standing know the next song, and then they sit down. And so by the end, you have like 2 or 3 kids standing playing the more advanced songs, and it's cool because that gives the young ones like something to look forward to, and it gives the older ones a little sense of like accomplishment, like I've done this, I've worked hard, and I can remain standing because I know these songs.
Oh, I love these stories. They're beautiful. I've been in conversations with a couple of local municipalities in order to, you've got this stage, you have this amphitheater, but you're not activating it. So how can we foster the local talent and, all work together to promote it and coordinate this effort? So it's really beautiful to see the work that you're doing. So you've taken, I think, a very unique path in the music industry. As others, I'm sure the kids that you're teaching, as they continue to grow up, they're probably coming back to you and saying, I want to do what you're doing, or what advice do you have for me? So with that, what advice do you have for maybe some, teens, young adults that are contemplating that this is a career path for them they want to pursue?
It's a tricky world right now, and so I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I've been working with a man actually who's starting a platform that's hopefully going to revolutionize the music industry and make it actually possible to make a living playing music, called The Flow. So check out The Flow. I do think it's going to revolutionize a lot of what's toxic about the industry. I'm praying for that, and it's supposed to be released this fall-ish, so hopefully around the time of this podcast coming out, there's a way to check. Right now there's even a baseline, theflow.com, and you can see what I'm talking about. So that's one of the things as far as a tangible medium I would recommend. But the second one is, I would say, especially to an early teenager, don't get distracted by the industry. I'd say stay focused on growing your music and your artistry. Like if you can focus on your music and artistry and developing that part of who you are, that's going to pay off in dividends. Like people get distracted by wanting fame and by wanting to get lots of high numbers on social media, and that's like the vehicle and the avenue that we've seen that's showing us that that's how musicians do it these days, right? But you have to learn all these tech things in order to do that, and I feel like the raw musicianship is getting left behind. Like people are more interested in growing their social media than they are in growing their talent. And I'd say grow your musicianship, go to music camps, immerse yourself in learning. Like the more you learn, you think you might be there, there's always more. In music there's so much more. There's an ocean of the amount of you can learn on any instrument. I mean, I'm still, I feel like, swimming in the shallow end, and I've been playing 33 years without stopping. Like the depth of what you can reach musically is vast, and there's a lot of reasons for playing music other than becoming famous. And so I'm like, keep immersing yourself in education and practicing and growing your craft and becoming the best musician you can become, because that's what's going to feed your soul for the long run, whereas all the other stuff is going to ebb and flow and fade away, and
It'd just be noise. Yes,
it's a distraction really. So stay focused on the music, and when you play from your heart, and everything else will fall into place. Like it's a very synchronistic world, and as you play and you're playing, it becomes more and more powerful, and you're focusing on developing your own craft and your own artistry. That's the thing that makes people gravitate towards you, is like having a unique gift. And so sharpening that razor, doing the work, focusing, practicing, that's where the good stuff is. All the other stuff is kind of a distraction at this point.
I think that's beautiful advice, because it translates to anyone doing anything, right? You invest in yourself. That's the best investment you will ever make, right? Of course, we want to invest in our kids, but the more we invest in ourselves, better parents we become, better humans we become. So I think that transcends.
I agree.
Yeah. Out of your professional life, what else are you passionate about, and how does that influence your work?
I'm a yogi. So I guess yoga, meditation, that's been another practice that I've been doing for a long time. My parents were yogis. And I started my own practice really when I was about 18, but I had done dance in high school and middle school, so I was always very physical in my body, but translating it over into yoga has been kind of just a great grounding spiritual practice for me. And I think it really parallels the music, and I think it parallels this desire to focus on your practice. It's the same thing, right? Practicing any form of like something that grounds you. Music is one, yoga is one, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, it's all connected really. But I'm pretty deep into yoga. I'm also a yoga trainer. I'm a teacher trainer. I'm a teacher. I'm a yoga teacher. And I just feel like all of that kind of falls into everything that I do with music. Like it all kind of amalgamates into the same thing. I love hiking. I love jamming. I've gotten really into being an entrepreneur for all this to work. So, I've had to learn a bunch of tech things. So it's like I'm kind of this amalgamation of like left and right brain to be able to bring all this to the world. So I have had to learn that stuff too. And it's really cool because I think that's another form of creativity. And if I can remember what the focus is, what the point of it all is, and not get distracted by the shiny objects, that's I think my goal.
Totally understand you on that. I find that I've got a dry erase board off to the right here, and I have, me at the center, and then, all the little bubbles of things that I'm working on. But again, I always try to come back and keep, the little bubbles to 6 or less. But obviously being a mom is one of them, taking care of myself is one of them. And so, what reach can you have so long as you're making sure to cover all these bases to begin with? So balance is everything.
Totally. And of course I'm about to be a mother, so that's become another hobby. And I have a dog. She's become a huge hobby, I guess you call it. I don't even know what you call raising a dog. You call it a passion. You love it. So that started taking and I started learning how do you train a dog and all these things. And so the dog thing really took over in my brain as far as this is another job, but then it's it's a hobby, I think. So yoga, my dog, walking, and then my baby, of course, that's going to be a whole nother life-changing event. And I hope that having a baby actually shows me that some of the stuff I've been teaching is accurate. But I have a feeling I'll be learning a lot more than I can even imagine right now.
Nothing, as a mom of two, nothing could ever prepare you, but it's the greatest gift. And they teach you as much as you're learning from them, teaching them, we're learning from them as well. So it's a really beautiful, again, cycle of life and balance and discovery.
I'm so excited. I feel ready.
Yes, I'm excited for you. So where can our listeners get more information about you and your work?
Well, my website for my music is phoebehuntmusic.com, and there you can just find all things related to my music, my videos and my songs, and you can buy my albums. And then Plant Seeds of Music is the free training that parents can go to check out if my philosophy resonates with you as far as do you want to go deeper in working together in that way. And ukulelesprouts.com is just to see what studios we have available and opening, and we're hoping in the next few years that we have 10 or 20 studios kind of pop up all over the country. But right now we're just it's right under the surface of the earth. They're about to sprout up, but there's about 10-15 clients that I think might actually start their studios in the next spring, kind of next fall, 2025, 2026 time. So I'd love to see that website have 100 studios on it someday and just see seeds of music being planted everywhere. But voila, those are the places to find me.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So big thank you to our guest today, Phoebe Hunt, for sharing such valuable insights about her love for music and the inspiration behind her melodies. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, keep enjoying the rhythm of success and keep your ears open for future stories from the culture creators and innovators in the world of music.
My name is Phoebe Hunt, and you are listening to Hustle and Heart.